Well, the Modi budget is here and hopes are running high at this point in time. Will the government deliver on the agenda that was set out by the BJP in its election manifesto? CNBC-TV18 along with BMR has done a poll of finance professionals and CFOs in the country to get you findings of the CNBC-TV18 BMR pre-budget poll survey. Some of it will surprise you, some of it won't. I've got a panel here to take us through the findings and to discuss those findings and what it could mean for the Finance Minister and his budget on the 10th of July. Joining us on the show today, Sunil Godhwani, Saurabh Srivastava, Gokul, Chaudhri and Rajeev. Dimri, gentlemen, appreciate you joining us. Let me go straight to question one. And the first question that we asked respondents was, will the government promote economic growth in priority over fiscal deficit management? The response is interesting, Sunil Godhwani. Almost 76% said yes, they are going to back for growth over fiscal consolidation. Our sources within the government seems to suggest that fiscal deficit, whether it's 4.1 or 4.3 or 4.5%, say fiscal deficit is going to be priority for this government. How do you read it?
Emotionally, I think they should look at growth over fiscal deficit, but on a realistic platform, they will have to look at fiscal deficit. They'll have to look at inflationary measures and let the economic growth come in over priority-based issues, So they'll have to plan, okay, what do we want to do this year? What should we do next year? And plan the economic growth in that manner. So what are you expecting? Are you expecting statements of intent, a roadmap in terms of growth and so on and so forth? Or do you believe that tangible action is what is likely in this budget? I think he has to give a roadmap. I clearly expect him to give a roadmap backed by one or two tangible actions.
Okay, what would those two tangible actions be?
Well, allow FDI into insurance, look at somewhere to get into retail. Let the retrospective law, okay, you may not change it, but you
don't preempt the retrospective law questions. We've asked those questions and we'll get to those responses in just a bit. Saurabh Srivastava, the two tangible things that you believe this government will do in the budget, and especially on this business of fiscal deficit versus growth, which side do you see them? Do you believe that they're going to be cautious, or do you believe that he is going to be able to do something bold because he doesn't have the fiscal room?
No, I think they will want growth. But the thing is, unless they make the right statements and noises on fiscal deficit, we'll have a serious problem with global rating agencies.
Right.
So he will have to make those statements. I think in terms of growth and fiscal deficit, if you look at sort of trying to align the two, clearly FDI, disinvestment, I mean, if you can show where the resources will come from for the investments you need to make on infrastructure or on many other things, then to some extent you're saying you'll handle fiscal deficit and you'll have some room for growth.
So, Gokul, there's been one discourse which is, get ready for the bitter pill. This government is going to roll out tough measures. We haven't seen any real tough measures in that sense. The one or two tough measures that were taken have silently or quietly been rolled back in some form or shape. The other messaging that we've been given is, Achhe din aane wale hain aur achhe din aa gaye. Do you think the truth is going to be somewhere in the middle?
I think we'll be left with a bit of status quo on tax rates, on tax incentives, and a number of other features. And I think, as Saurabh said, I think the emphasis will be on divestment. The emphasis will be on getting investment through FDI and opening up some of the sectors, whether it's insurance, whether it's going to be pension, whether it's going to be railways, corporatization, and so forth. So I think the investment momentum will be built first before we see any of the other actions.
Since you spoke about disinvestment, this is one of the questions that we asked. And we asked, will a time-bound and structured divestment of government holdings in public sector units be announced? You expect them to lay out a much more aggressive disinvestment target, Gokul?
Well, if they were to put a target in excess of 100,000 crores, I think that is possible.
Who believes that they're going to put down a target of 100,000 crore rupees on disinvestment? Not you, Saurabh Srivastava?
They probably won't, but 100,000 crores is so easy to do.
It may be easy to do. Rajeev, do you believe that they'll go as aggressive as 100,000 crores? What do you believe?
Not in this budget.
Not in this budget.
Not on 10.
Majority seem to believe that this government is going to go aggressive. Over 70% of the respondents seem to believe that this government is going to go aggressive on disinvestment. Suti, for instance, Saurabh Srivastava, your big take is, why don't they just get rid of all the government holding in companies like ITC and L&T? Do you believe that is the route that they're likely to take?
I mean, it's hard to tell, but I just cannot for the life of me figure out why the government should hold shares in ITC and L&T and Axis Bank. I mean, for that matter, why not hold some shares in TCS and Infosys?
But from a
I mean, that alone will give you 40-50,000 crores.
Right, but specifically from a capital markets point of view, and there's been a lot of talk about, RGESS and whether they're going to tweak the Rajiv Gandhi Equity Savings Scheme and so on and so forth. From a capital markets point of view, what are you expecting?
I think they're going to, their expectation to tweak something like that. But there's also expectation that they will look at the long-term capital tax in a different manner. They want to get in the retail participation.
Right.
Because he always said, in the election rally, he always said he wanted to make the Indian stock exchange like a New York Stock Exchange. And why aren't there companies like Facebook and Google in India? But he needs to provide a platform for them to happen here. And the platform is by deepening the capital markets. So he has to get retail participation in.
So from a capital markets point of view, and we have asked that question on securities transaction tax and what is likely to be done, whether we're going to see tweaking of this STT or doing away with the STT. What is your own sense? And, every year we talk about the STT and then nothing happens. So what's your own sense about STT?
I'll be surprised if he touches it. I don't think he'll do it now. He may give an indication and he'll say maybe down the line, not right now. It's too early in the game.
Okay, so if not STT for the capital markets, what else could we possibly see? Or what would you like to see?
I would like to see STT happening, but I would like to see also the fact that if we can create a regime where the IPOs can happen and deepen the market with that, and that will happen if there's a comfort level with the markets, where people start feeling, okay, we are okay to go and list ourselves, make it easier for them, take the bureaucracy away from a lot of processes.
But some measures have been taken by SEBI in the last 2 SEBI board meetings. Do you think that is enough?
I don't think that's enough, but they are a step in the right direction. I think the largest step is people feeling comfortable that now we are in a process where decisions will get taken. Its growth is going to happen. And there is going to be a balanced approach to growth versus fiscal issues. I think the market will read it and get going by itself.
Okay. The other question that we asked, Gokul, and you were talking about that, and so was Saurabh Srivastava, sectoral caps for foreign investment, should that be increased in defense, insurance, and of course, should they allow it in e-commerce? What's your sense? Likely, almost more than 70% of the people that we've polled believe that we are likely to see a hike in the FDI sectoral caps.
The debate on increasing the FDI in some of these sectors started with in the dying days of the UPA government. Yeah. And I think the UPA government did not take the right decisions at the right point of time. I think the view is that having built some amount of consensus on this subject, this government should be able to take decisions. As far as e-commerce is concerned, I think on the marketplace model, I think it's very clear that they should be able to take a decision. I think an inventory-based model will come next. So
but you are hopeful that e-commerce we could see, and maybe as early as the budget, you think?
I think he should be able to bring some of those out because there has been some progress on that. There has been some
and
other debate.
And the consultation has been done. The white paper is out there. It's all ready.
So that's the easy stuff to move out.
Yeah, yes, sir.
No, I was just saying that on e-commerce, one of the key things that is not good for the small shopkeepers, if you look at the e-commerce models today, they actually are integrating all these Kirana stores.
Yeah.
So to some extent, it takes away that friction that people see between the Kirana stores and big retail.
One of the other things that we asked, and that's FDI related, is will 49% be under the automatic route in all sectors, or will we still have a differentiated sort of mechanism for different sectors? Do you believe that it's going to be automatic 49%?
I think if we are able to get insurance and defense up to 49%, then there is no such sacred cows left to protect. I think 49% should become then the norm. Because I think the roadmap clearly showed that as long as companies were Indian-owned and controlled with 51%, the remaining 49% could be raised through FDI or FI holdings.
There is ambivalence as far as our poll is concerned. It's 50-50 on whether or not we are going to see that happen. But the other big one, and that is, the DTC. Of course, there is the GST and the DTC. But as far as the DTC is concerned, and it's interesting because a majority of our respondents, over 60%, don't see the DTC being legislated.
They're hoping it won't get legislated, maybe, for 2 reasons. One, the DTC carries a very strong imprint of the outgoing government.
Yeah.
The second thing is the DTC policies were bringing in GAR, they were bringing in indirect transfers, they were bringing in CFC regulations, and they are also bringing in such new concepts. Some of these concepts were borrowed early from the DTC and brought into the Income Tax Act, and they unleashed a lot of trouble for the taxpayers. So I think the view which is emerging is that DTC, which was meant to be simplification, those elements of which have been incorporated in law haven't been helpful.
So you don't believe that the DTC in its current avatar is likely to be taken forward, and that is what the government has publicly also pretty much stated. I mean, they don't want to, they've disowned this version of the DTC anyway. So the poll you think is accurate when it says that we don't expect the DTC to be legislated in its current avatar?
It is not expected to be priority for this government, and certainly the taxpayers don't believe there's an advantage of moving there.
GAR, and that was the other big controversy apart from the retrospective controversy that Pranab Mukherjee left us with, and that's one of the questions that we've asked, and again a majority, over 60%, believe that the implementation of GAR will be deferred further. Good news?
I think so. Definitely investor friendly. It will affect the sentiments. I mean, if it was implemented, it had a lot of negative connotations to it. The investor sentiment would have gone slightly negative. But with postponing it, or at least looking to modify it and having it studied more, I think it's positive.
Okay. Round the table. GAR, you believe that it's going to be deferred further?
Yeah.
I think it should push forward till we are far more settled with the current tax adversarial environment, and that turning far more benign.
What could push further mean? If it's not 2016, what could it be?
Push it forward with 2 to 3 years.
Another 2 to 3 years. Is that what you would go with as well?
Absolutely.
Now we come to the retrospective tax, and you were preempting that, but I asked you to hold on. This is what our poll survey shows up. Will retrospective application of taxation of indirect equity transfers be withdrawn? Over 60% believe that that is likely. What is your own sense? Repeal or some sort of a clarification saying from now on we will not resort to retrospective changes?
I don't think they will touch what has happened, but they will give an indication that they're going to be far more open to consider that it does not happen again.
And if that were to happen, if they say, okay, this is the law and it stands today, but in terms of future, we are not going to make retrospective changes, will foreign investors be satisfied, or will this be seen as a big disappointment and a big negative?
I think it will be seen as a disappointment.
It will be
seen as a disappointment, because they clearly expect them to go back and repeal it.
Yeah. I think they will see it as a disappointment unless there's some very positive utterances on what they will do.
What could very positive utterances be?
I mean,
if they say India is open for business, we welcome domestic and foreign capital, we will provide you a stable policy regime, we will provide you certainty as far as tax laws are concerned, will you be satisfied? Will foreign investors be satisfied if they don't amend or repeal the retrospective law?
I think most people will not be satisfied, but my sense is they may not just repeat it right away, but make noises about how they will make best efforts to negotiate sensible arbitration with Vodafone and all other people. So it depends on how they mix it up. But my sense is, yes, they will have to say that prospectively it won't happen. Retrospectively, I'm not so sure.
Gokul, do you agree with the poll, or do you believe that we are going to just hear them say it's the end of the retrospective era, but we can't change what is on paper at this point in time?
The retrospective law had a certain outcome. That outcome was it let a genie out, which is today facing a number of investors. Question is, how do you put the genie back in the box insofar as the past issues are concerned? And the conciliation which the previous government embarked on has to be brought to a conclusion. So therefore, some framework will have to be given to deal with those issues, because the last government struggled with it. I'm sure the new finance minister does not want to spend his term dealing with that problem. So he have to deal with a framework to resolve that controversy. Going forward, they will have to lay out the rules of the game as to how this provision will be implemented. So I think there will be some action on it, but a complete repeal may not be in the works.
Repeal may not be in the works. Related to that, and again, one of the controversial issues that all you tax guys have been talking about is transfer pricing provisions, whether they will be simplified with a view to reduce tax litigation. Again, over 50% seem to believe that that is very likely. Gokul, would you agree?
India is today contributing 70% of the world's transfer pricing litigation. We cannot have that distinction. We need to bring down transfer pricing litigation in this country, and that has to be resolved both by legislation as well as by the practice in the tax department.
Do you feel confident that we are going to finally address this issue?
I think it's one of the issues that will definitely get addressed.
It will definitely get addressed.
I'm very positive on it.
Sorry?
Yeah, no, I think so, because if they don't address this issue, everything else they do has no real meaning.
I think the first sign could be, are they going to deal with the safe harbor limits? Are they going to make them more reasonable?
And there is indication that they may do that.
Yeah.
And that could be a good signal of what is to come.
Okay, and what is to come is the question that we asked on the goods and services tax, and that will also be an opportunity for us to get Rajeev Dimri into this conversation. So stay on with us. You're watching the CNBC-TV18 BMR budget poll. We're right back with you after this short commercial break.